Has made good on his promise to enact immigration reform through an executive order and, in essence, thrown down the gauntlet to the Republicans in Congress, telling them if they are opposed to his action, they have a simple remedy. Go ahead and pass a bill. Joining us now, two guests, the Utah Republican Senator Orrin Hatch. He's a key member of the Senate Judiciary Committee's subcommittee on immigration, refugees, and border security. Also joining us, the California Democratic Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. She's a member of the Judiciary Committee, a former immigration attorney as well. To both of you, thanks very much for joining us. Congresswoman, do you believe, and you've been involved in this immigration battle for a long time, the president went far enough?
Well, I think the president went as far as he thought he could do based on the legal advice that he received. As I'm sure you know, since really 1952, it's been established that presidents have the authority to take deferred action, and many presidents have. Reagan, the first Bush, Kennedy, George W. Bush, and on and on. The question is, how far can that go? And I think, although some of us had suggested he might go further, he is doing what his lawyers have suggested he can do, right. And I respect that.
All right, let me bring Senator Hatch into this conversation. Senator Hatch, you've been involved in this issue for a long time. You were one of 14 Republican senators who voted for that comprehensive immigration reform bill last year with Senator McCain, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, other Republicans as well. It has languished, as I've pointed out, over the year and a half in the House of Representatives. Were you disappointed that the Speaker didn't even consider what the Senate had passed?
No, because I knew that they had their own problems over there, and they wanted to do an immigration series of immigration bills, which I think they were prepared to do once we turn after January 1st. The problem here is that when Zoe mentions other presidents, take Reagan, take Bush. In both of those cases, they had prior legislation that they then enforced, which is what the president's supposed to do, is enforce legislation. Well, some have mentioned 22 times that some have mentioned 22 times the president said he didn't have this kind of authority, that would be unconstitutional, that he's not an emperor, he's not a king, and so forth. Well, I hate to say this is not the way to do it. I actually believe that the Republicans in the House were prepared to come up with their versions, and then we'd go to conference and solve these problems. But I'm for getting this done. I'd like to get it done the right way. I'd like to get it done so it's legally done. I'd like to get it done so that it'll be a lasting solution rather than a temporary one, which is what the president has done.
And I assume, Congresswoman, you want to get it done as well. The Republicans will have an even bigger majority in the House in January. They'll be the majority in the Senate. You're ready to compromise, work with them, and see if you can come up with some sort of framework, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we did a count, and at the time the count was done, we knew we had the votes to pass the Senate bill. But we made it clear to the Speaker, do your own bill. We had a bipartisan group in the House that I was part of for over 4 years. We actually wrote a bill that, because of Republicans' concerns, we were not able to introduce. We made it clear you can go comprehensive, do it in pieces, do it serially. They wouldn't even put up the bill that was passed unanimously by the Homeland Security Committee on border security. They just won't do anything. And at some point, the president has to do his job, which is what he's done now. He can't rewrite the law, of course, but there is discretion under the law. And for example, when IRCA was passed, Senator Hatch voted against it, but the bill specifically excluded in 1986 the dependents of the beneficiaries, and President Reagan decided to give all the dependents deferred action because he couldn't countenance separating families. This is the same situation. The president has asked Congress to act. If they don't like what he's done, they can supersede it. Certainly Senator Hatch did his job, but the House of Representatives, the Republicans, refused to act.
A lot of people look back on what President Reagan did. You were in the Senate at the time, back in I think it was 1986, when he went ahead with what was widely called then that amnesty bill, which became the law, giving amnesty to millions of undocumented people who were here in the United States. So was that a big mistake going back then? Do you remember that? Because the president, this current president, says he's doing exactly what Reagan and Bush did.
Well, Reagan actually had legislation that was passed that he implemented and did it the way he thought he should do it. And that's the difference. The Congress is the responsible party to be able to pass legislation like this. The president then has the job of enforcing it and implementing it. In this case, the president's taken over both the rights of Congress and his rights, and even the rights of the Supreme Court, and incorporated them all into the White House. Now, that just shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be permitted. Now, I have to say that I've been talking with the Judiciary Committee over in the House, and they were prepared to go ahead as soon as we get through the first of next year and come up with a series of bills that they think would be the way to go to solve this problem, starting with making sure that the borders are secure. And I think most everybody would have to admit that.
Are you ready to do this piecemeal, smaller steps, and then eventually trying to get the Senate to pass relatively modest steps and sending it to the president for his signature?
We've made it clear, and I talk to the chairman of the Immigration Subcommittee practically every day. We don't agree on everything, but I certainly respect him. I talk to Chairman Goodlatte constantly. No one is talking to us in a bipartisan way about acting together. We're prepared to act, we're prepared to compromise, and the president in his speech last night held out his hand saying, if you don't like this, do your job, legislate, I'll work with you. So I hope that this action, which by the way is bringing peace of mind to millions of people who've been living in fear, I hope this action will spur the Congress to get busy and do their job, which is to provide compromise legislation that can serve the country well. And I've just got to say that on the legal issue, we've just received a letter from dozens of scholars, legal scholars, pointing out that the president is well within his authority. Other presidents have done exactly the same thing. And in fact, the Supreme Court, most recently in the Arizona case, reaffirmed the right of the executive branch to defer prosecution and to defer immigration action in cases such as this. So we ought to talk about how to legislate, not get stuck on a legal issue, which is very clear.
And we'll see what happens.
That's
Go ahead,
nice
Senator, final thought.
That's a nice argument, but the president didn't have the right to violate the law, to violate the Constitution. And what Zoe is talking about is presidential action after, and certainly not in granting what really amounts to amnesty to these folks. Now look, I'm on Zoe's side on this. I actually believe we need to do something on this, and we did it in the Senate. It's not a perfect bill. I was hopeful the House will do a more perfect bill and we get together and resolve this. I think we will do that, but what the president did is not a lasting way of solving this problem. It's a temporary way of not even solving it, and in the process creating a huge uproar in the process that is going to make it even more difficult to pass real immigration reform. I'm going to work with Zoe and others who feel otherwise, and hopefully we can get this done in a way that is decent, honorable, and welcoming to people who already are here and aren't going to go home.
All right.
So I'll do my best, and Zoe, I hope we can work together.
I suspect both of you, we'll be seeing both of you on a House-Senate conference committee working out some compromise legislation moving forward. We'll look forward to that. Senator Hatch, always good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us, Congressman Lofgren. Same to you. Appreciate both of you for joining us. Let's see if the two of you and all of your colleagues can, in fact, in the coming weeks and months in the new Congress, get together and work out some sort of reasonable compromise. That's what your job is. Let's hope you guys can do it. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks so much.
Up next, we're just days away.